Well, welcome to Principles with Cory and Logan. I'm excited about our guest today. I know you guys are going to learn a ton from our guest today. And somebody I've really just gotten to know over the last few months. And one of the things my wife says to me all the time is about an optimistic outlook on life. And sometimes I can drive her crazy with my optimism, but I think I have found somebody that challenges me for the title of most optimistic. So I'm excited for you guys to get to know our guest today. Our guest today is Carl Sheppard. And Carl, welcome to the podcast, Cory, Principles with Cory and Logan. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm honored to be a guest today.
Yeah, well, I'm excited to get to know you, and your story is going to be one of that's really going to encourage. And before we hopped on, I just ask you if you could title your life's journey up until this point. You said overcoming your battles, and you've overcome some, and I'm excited about everyone getting to hear your story. But before we do, I always like to ask the question. Our podcast is called Principles with Cory and Logan. And for you, what are some of the principles or core values that are important to you that you try to live out?
Well, Cory, I think being a servant is first and foremost one of my main principles. I love to serve people. I love to, whether it's helping somebody, giving them a hand up, or just being there to be available for anybody in need. That's one thing that, for me, that has served me well. And then I like to be an encourager. There's something about encouraging other people. Once you've helped them and you've served them, to encourage them to know that they can continue on and make it through whatever struggles or whatever situations that they may face. So I think those are the two biggest principles, values that I hold, true to, is be an encourager, be somebody that you would want somebody to be to you. I know there's been a lot of people throughout my journey that has encouraged me, that's given me a encouraging word. And I know that there's been a ton of people that has served me in one way or another. And just to be able to repay that, because I know how important and how much it meant to me.
That's good stuff, Carl. Those are two great attributes, servant and serving other people, and being an encourager. You hear all the negativity in the world. We need some folks like you, to encourage and motivate. So tell us a little bit about your journey and your story. Kind of let us get to know you a little bit. What's your background and kind of what are you doing now, Carl?
Okay. Well, so quick overview is I was born and raised in Hannibal, Missouri, kind of a Yankee, I guess, by birth. Moved around and ended up here in Mississippi back in 1996. Ended up in Baldwin working for a company there, doing some marketing for them. And then, life just kind of changed directions. And so I went to work for a furniture factory, and then ended up with Cooper Tire, where I'm still currently employed. But, as life does at times, they kind of throw you for a loop. And here about back in 2010, so about 10 years ago, simple thing, I was in in Guntown. I was loading some firewood up in the back of a pickup truck. Just happened to knock the little trailer hitch on my shin. It hit my shin against the trailer hitch, and like any other guy, no big deal. Broke the skin, nothing major. Well, it never did heal. It just would not heal, and it just continued getting worse and continued getting worse. And I had a clotting disorder, and at the time, I did not know how much it was affecting my veins. Well, as life progressed, the wounds would never heal, and it got to a point here in 2018 that I ended up having to make the decision of having my leg amputated at the knee. And so, when most people, when they have an amputation, it's majority of the time it's through a accident, and they wake up in a hospital bed one day, with missing a limb because of the accident. Well, me, I had the opportunity to choose. Do I want to continue life the way I was living in pain, or did I want to go ahead and, amputate and, change my direction of life? And so I went ahead and chose amputation. And, it was a big decision for myself and, my family to make at that time. But, it had gotten to a point where life was just, I was just existing in life. I wasn't living life. And I knew this offered me an opportunity to get my life back. I seen where, people was succeeding with, prosthetics and everything. And so, I made that decision. We had the surgery November 14th of 2018. So I'm coming up on 2 years. And at first I thought it would just be, 6 weeks. I'd be in a new prosthetic and back to work. Unfortunately, again, life threw another curveball. And, throughout that situation, I had to determine whether I was going to let that define who I was and let the things that were happening to me get me down, or was I going to overcome them? And, I have to give the credit to God. My faith in God is strong. My faith in God, my relationship with God is probably, the most important thing in my life next to my family. And so I had to depend on him. And, in the book of Nehemiah, it tells us, he said, he made a comment. Nehemiah said, for the joy of the Lord is your strength. And that's one of the verses that I had lived by over the process of these 10 years. If I can have joy, if I can find the happiness, if I can find the joy in my situation and have the joy of the Lord in my heart, then it's going to strengthen me. It's going to give me the strength to continue on. And so ended up, after having the leg amputated in November, in January, it ended up getting infected. The bone got infected, and they had to do another surgery, what they call revision surgery, where they took off a little bit more bone of the femur, a little more of the femur bone. And so, I went back to it, and, it was discouraging. Just because we show our joy doesn't mean that we don't have dark days, and doesn't mean that it doesn't get discouraging at times. I'm not going to be one to say that, I don't have dark days. I do. But I don't sit and waller in those days. I don't sit and stay there. So I had the revision. Things were going good. 2019, I was on my way to heal up and get that prosthetic and get back on 2 feet, so to speak. And so all of a sudden I get my prosthetic and I'm wearing it for about 2 days, and I have a sore on the backside of my stump. And I ended up what they call spitting a stitch, which is where internal stitch has come out. And so, that was kind of another setback, it's like, I could say, why me? Why me, God? But as I learned, why not me? This is just another step in showing God's mercy and God's joy in my life. He's using me to be a witness for him. And so they pulled the stitch out, and that was, I don't know, about June or July of that year. And I'm thinking, okay, a couple of weeks and I'll be back in that prosthetic. And I'm looking at 2020, and that place is still not healing up. And I'm sitting in the hospital one day in Birmingham, and I asked the surgeon, I said, hey, this place isn't healing up. I said, it's not that it's bleeding all the time. There's nothing coming out of it. It's just not healing. And so they look at it real close, and there was another stitch in there. And, so they pulled that stitch out. And, thankfully at that time I healed up, and I was able to get my prosthetic. And, I've been with my prosthetic now for, I don't know, several months, 3 or 4 months now. And, through it all, I've learned that if you put your faith in God and you put your trust in God, then he will guide you and direct you and lead you in all your paths. The word of God is not just a book of fairy tales. It is, his inspired word. And if you just put your trust and your faith in it, he will lead you, and you will overcome.
Yeah. Ooh, that's good stuff, man. And man, just hearing that, November 14th, 2018, you had a tough decision. You made the decision, like you said, you were just existing. And I want to dive into that here in just a little bit, but then you had a setback in January where it got infected. And then June, July, you had a stitch, and then another stitch that was messed up. And then finally now it feels like you're on the up and up. And
Yes.
I wrote down what you said, just because we show our joy doesn't mean that we have dark days, but you don't stay there. And I think that's the point, is where are you camping out at, right? Where are
Right.
you
Right.
spending time at, right? Nobody's on a high peak all the time, and nobody's in the valley all the time, right? There are highs and lows to life, but the point is, where are you camping out at? Where are you staying at, right? I just think that was great. I want to go back to that November 14th, though, right? And you had a decision. You said you're in a lot of pain, and your options were continue to live life in pain or to get the amputation. And I just really want to go kind of through your mindset there when that decision was being made. Like, what were you kind of, some people make pros and cons lists, but what were you seeing? What helped you make the decision?
Honestly, Corey, it was one particular incident. It was the night before we went to go see the surgeon. Had the appointment set up with the surgeon to discuss amputation, and I was hurting. I was in so much pain. I mean, I was in tears, and I was in, just what can I do to make this pain go away? I've taken the max amount of pain pills. I've taken ibuprofen. I've done everything that I could do. And I turned to my wife and I said the one thing that I regret ever saying to her, because I put her in a situation when I did. I turned to her and I said, go get the cast iron frying pan and knock me out. I wanted relief from the pain, whatever it took to get that relief. I knew if I was knocked out, then I wouldn't feel the pain. And so the next day we're in the surgeon's office and we're talking about it. And, he says, hey, your situation, you're a perfect candidate for this. Your life will change in so many different ways, but you'll have a life that you'll be able to live. You won't just exist, you'll live. And he said, let me do something. Let me go set up an appointment for you to talk to this amputee down at a Hanger Prosthetics. He himself has been an amputee for since his childhood, and let me just let you set up and talk to him and get his opinion. And so when he went out of the room, I turned around and I asked Brandy, I said, hon, I said, what do you think I should do? What do you think I should do? And she looked and she started crying, and she looked at me, she started crying, and she said, I don't want you ever asking me to knock you out again. And I knew right then that, I had to go through with it. I mean, it had affected my life so negatively at that point that, I'm like you, I try to see the positive in everything. And it does sometimes, my wife will be like, don't you know that there's negative in this world? But, I do, I try to see the positive in everything. But at that time, it opened my eyes to how bad life had gotten for me as far as, just existing.
Yeah.
And so when he came back in, I told him, I said, let's have the surgery. Let's schedule it. And of course, he said, okay, we'll get you in first thing tomorrow morning. I said, whoa, doc, give me a couple of days to prepare for this,
I gotta get
making the
mentally
decisions
ready.
one thing. Right. And so, that's what made that decision for me. That's it didn't just happen to me. It happened to my whole family. My whole family's been affected by it. We had just had child number 5, and she was 3 weeks old at the time.
Oh, wow.
And so I knew that, that was going to be going to put more pressure, more responsibility on my wife. I wouldn't be able to, carry my child across the room to soothe her, So I knew that there was going to be, other issues that were going to have to be dealt with. But again, I knew that I could either sit on that couch and mope all day, or I could make a decision to move forward in life and to actually make a difference, not only in my life and my family's life, but make a difference in somebody else's life.
That's good stuff. I want to touch base on some motivation stuff, but also the real question I want to ask you too is, you made that decision, right? Yes. And had it, and then you had all these setbacks. Was there a twinkling of regret? What were your thoughts whenever you had some of the setbacks right there?
You know, there was no regrets. I never had it. The only regret that I had was I would have wished I would have done it sooner.
Mm.
You know, that is one thing that I, can't go back, can't live in that regret, but that is one regret that I did have. But what made me the kept me going, I guess, is the question you're asking, is the fact that the first time I went back to work after the surgery, Cooper was great to me. They allowed me to come in on crutches. They made several accommodations for me. But I was leaving the office and going to use the restroom, and a guy came by on a forklift, and he stopped me. And he said, I just want you to know I have so much respect for you, and I don't know how you do it. I don't know, most people would be at home on the couch. And I looked at him and I said, it's not me, it's God. If I didn't have God in my life, I wouldn't be here today. I would be on the couch. And the doors that God has opened up to allow me to be a witness for him through this, that's what keeps me going, because I know there's somebody else that's going to be in my situation one day, Cory, and they're going to need that inspiration, because those dark days, like I said, they do come, and they're going to need me to be that light for them in that darkness. They're going to need that light that God has to shine through me, and for me to be able to say, hey, I know it's hard, but you're going to make it. You can make a difference in somebody else's life. So that's what keeps me going.
That's good, man. You're gonna be the guy from Hanger for other people, right? But
there you go.
Here's something that you're touching on right here is, you've heard some of my stuff. I talk about don't should on people, right? We don't should on people. Don't tell people what they should do if you haven't done it yourself. Don't tell people what they should try if you haven't attempted it yourself. You can speak with authority on some things because you've been there and you've done that, and you can tell people they should do some things, right? Here's a question I've got for you, right? There are a lot of people out there that are doing exactly what you said, just existing, and they're not living life, right? And they're just kind of going through life existing, but they're not even going through a challenge or a setback. They're just at, everyday life and just existing. Any words of encouragement? You're an encourager. Any words of encouragement for somebody who's just existing and they've got something else in the tank and they're just going through the motions?
It's that first step. It's taking that first step. It's a mindset. If there's one thing that I've, like you said, we've gotten to know each other better over the last couple months. If there's one thing that I've learned from you, Cory, it's everything's a mindset. It's how are you going to think, as a man thinketh? How are you going to think? What is your mindset going to be? And, for somebody that's just existing, you have to ask yourself the tough question. Are you happy with where you're at? And if you're not, what are you going to do to change that? It's, I say it all the time because I've lived it. Knowledge isn't power until you put it into action. You can read all the self-help books you want. You can listen to all the podcasts you want. You can dream about doing this, and you can have good intentions. But until you put those intentions into action, you're going to continue living life the same way you've always lived. And, and I think that's one of the things that God has showed me throughout this process is, God told Jeremiah, he said, before I formed thee in the belly, I knew thee. So he knew us before he even created us. He said, before I came out of the womb, I sanctified thee. He already sanctified us before we were even born. He knew what we were going to be. He put that anointing on us. And he said, I ordained you, I made you, I gave you the ability to become a prophet. So before you were born, Cory, before I was born, he already established those things in our life. Now it's up to us. Are we going to walk in that life that he has provided for us? Or are we going to settle for less? He knew you were, he knew you had the leadership capabilities to lead people in this, not only in this town and city, but in this state. You go across state, teaching leadership stuff. you have risen to what God ordained you to be, and that's what I guess I would tell people is, you are somebody, you are made for more, but it's up to you to walk in that calling. It's up to you to, he prepared you, he gave you the tools, he's, sanctified you, he's ordained you. Now it's your turn to do what he's called you to do.
Yeah, that's good stuff, man. I appreciate you saying that. But that is great. Yeah, 100%. And, one thing that we know is that God has put a call on our lives. He has things that he has for us, and they're good, right? They are good things because he is a good father, right? And nobody can take that away, but you can give it up, right?
Exactly.
You can give it up. Real quick, I wanna. You got an eagle behind you. I'd like to hear what your thoughts on the eagle. But before, when I saw that, a funny thing popped up in my head. We've got 3 small kids. We've got a 9, 6, and 4-year-old at the time of this, and we play the game of if you were an animal, what animal would you be, right? And
Right.
my wife, she says I would be a prairie dog. A little prairie dog. They put their head up and they just look around like that. She says,
Right.
that's how I am when I hear the word opportunity. I just go around. I was like, no, I am an eagle, not no prairie dog. But I want to know what's the eagle behind you?
I've always, I always had a fascination with eagles, and I think that developed from my childhood. I had a pastor that I highly respected and admired, and he had that fascination with eagles, and so I think that kind of developed from that point. But as I researched eagles before and looked at them, they have keen vision. They can see while they're flying in the air over a lake or a stream or something like that. They have such a keen vision that when they swoop down, they know just when to claw that fish and bring it up. And so, and to soar, they soar higher than most birds do. They in the thermal pockets, and just a few flaps of their wings will take them for miles because they get into those thermal pockets in the air, and it allows them thermal pockets to carry them over the distance that they're flying. And to me, it just amazed me at the ability that such a bird has. And going to the zoo as a child, and at seeing those birds, they're huge. When you think about it, and when they actually do their wingspans, they're gigantic birds. But to know that they rise above, when they see a storm, they rise above that storm and fly above it, so they don't have to weather that storm going through it. But sometimes we walk through a storm on our own choosing. We don't intentionally choose it, I would say, but instead of finding a way around that storm or rising above that storm or that challenge, we just casually walk through it and allow it to beat us down. And I guess that's my fascination with the eagles. I've got, that's not my only one, actually. That's just the only one I have here in my office. But I've always had a fascination with them. That's if I collect one thing besides books, it's eagles.
That's good stuff. But those books help you fly like an eagle, right? Well, tell me.
There you go.
Tell us what you're learning right now. What book you reading? You may be like me. You may have multiple books, but what all are you reading right now? What are you learning?
Okay, so I am actually reading, and I've told you before, I don't know where this book has been all my life, but The Traveler's Gift by Andy Andrews. Yeah. I started it, what was it, a couple weeks ago now? I probably read it 3 times already, and then I go back to it every day, because it gives you the principles for success. There's different principles at the end of each chapter, and the principles they call principles for success. One of the first ones is the buck stops here. Oh, Harry Truman. But it gives us that we cannot let something continue on. If we have the ability to stop it, the buck stops with us. We make that decision. What are we going to do? Are we going to allow it to keep going on, or blame somebody else? The buck stops with us, no matter where we put the blame on. A book I just finished was extreme ownership. That was wow, that was and I don't call many nonfiction books convicting, but that was a convicting book, because it taught me to take ownership in my life. One of the things that I've been working on lately is taking ownership for the things that I say. How do I, if I ask my child to do something, do I give them clear and precise instructions? If they only do half the job that I ask them to do, is it because that I failed to communicate? And if I did, I've got to correct that. Hey, I told you to unload the dishwasher, but I didn't tell you to load it. Well, most people would say, well, that's common sense, load the dishwasher. But we are training children up, and unless we tell them complete, simple instructions, they're not going to listen. They got a million other things going through their mind at this age, and this is why they're developing. Another book that I'm reading, actually I got it right here, and it's just one of my spiritual books, is I Am. It's a talking about the oneness of God. It's a book on the Godhead, and it's I try to keep at least 2 books going at all times. One that's either a motivational type book, business book, and then one that's a spiritual book, so I can keep a good balance going in my life. So yeah, I love books. My wife looked at me the other day and said, "You and those books." I said, "Yes, but I'm learning something,
That's right.
So yeah, that's what I've read and am reading currently.
That's good stuff. And, as you know, we've been reading those in our Legacy Builders Men's Mastermind Group, the Extreme Ownership and Traveler's Gift. Traveler's Gift is one of my favorite books. I recommend reading it at least once a year, and so good. It's one of those books that really made an impact on me in my life. And, the Legacy Builders, you're a part of it. It's a men's group for men who are leaders, who are entrepreneurs, who want to be around other men who are really, really wanting to grow and develop, but not at the expense of their faith, their family, or their fitness. And if any of you guys are interested in that, I'll have a link in the bottom. But what we're talking about, sorry, go ahead.
I could say, if I could say one thing about that, I've only been a member of it here for a few weeks now, but I've got to say that it's probably one of the best things that's happened to me here recently, because it does, like you said, it puts you around men that are going to challenge you, that they want to see you succeed. They want to see better of you. And so they're going to challenge you. And I was talking to somebody about it yesterday, and they said, well, I don't know that I would want to go through that scrutiny. And I said, but if you want to better yourself, if you want to continue living the same way you're living, then yes, don't be a part of it. But if it's something that you want to change, that you are made for more, and this will help you succeed. And being around these men, being a part of this mastermind group, Cory, the last couple of weeks has really impacted my life and changed me for the better. It's something as simple as getting to bed on, at a certain hour, a decent hour of the night. It doesn't seem like it's a big thing, but it is. It makes a big difference. Somebody told me, it says, your day starts when you go to bed. In several different books it mentions that, Miracle Morning. But anyway, so this being a part of this group has really challenged me to become a better man, a better father, a better husband, a better leader in my church. And so, just kind of actually just telling you, since you mentioned it, and encouraging anybody out there that's listening that does want to do better and not settle for the same old, click that link in the comment, or click that link, that you put on there, because it will make a difference in your life.
Well, I appreciate you sharing that, Carl. I really do. And, the challenge is good, and the guys in the group, and I don't say this because it's something that, I guess we started, or I started, or anything like that, but man, it is so, so needed. Guys need other men in their lives who desire growth, who want to put themselves in a position of growth, and be around other smart, intelligent, driven guys who are wanting to do the same thing. And here's one thing I found is if you put yourself in a position of growth, intentional growth, and if you talk about the guy who said, I don't want to go through that scrutiny. Well, challenge is tough. Coming out of a comfort zone is not comfortable, right? And but there's love is at the center of it. And when you have that without love, that is brutal. But when you have that with love, there's exponential growth. But one thing I wanted to kind of touch base on is in our traveler's gift, you said that the buck stops here is one of your kind of the one you're learning. One of my favorites though is the one seek wisdom, right? And I love the book of Proverbs. I've been going through the book of Proverbs every day since January, reading a proverb. And one thing I know about wisdom in the book of Proverbs, it says wisdom, it's lady wisdom, right? And wisdom needs to be pursued. And you think about our spouses, you're married and I'm married. And when we were pursuing our wives when we were younger and we were trying to go out on a date, it was something that we were consumed with. We longed for, we looked forward to those times that we were connected and those kind of things. So wisdom is the same way. It wants to be pursued. And that's why the principle in that book is seek wisdom. And wisdom will be found. It's I was reading today. It says wisdom is calling out for anybody who's wanting who's wanting to listen, but you have to seek it out. You have to pursue it. And anyway, that's probably my favorite principle in the book. Right.
Yes. That saying goes, show me the 5 people you keep closest to you, and I'll show you your future.
Yeah.
That's going back to that both wisdom. Tying wisdom into that legacy builders, having these men that you can seek wisdom from, because there's going to be men in this group that are going to be stronger in areas that I'm weak in. And excuse me, I'm going to have to seek that wisdom from them. I'm going to have to learn it somewhere, and having those group of men to seek that wisdom from. And, the ability to be able to give the wisdom and godly wisdom that God has blessed me with to those, other people, but it's got to be sought out, like you said, and I mean, it's just, it's there for the giving, but we got to seek it, like you said, and that's one of the things, I like that you brought that out, because it's one of those things that I have been doing the last, couple months is, seeking wisdom, asking the questions that I don't know. I'm at this crossroads. What do I do? Besides making that first step. Now I've made that first step. So, how do I get from, step 1 to step 2? Find those people that, you can seek those wisdom out from, and so, yeah, I think that's a great, that book. I mean, to say, one thing is my favorite out of that book, it's kind of hard to do because there's so much that, that's in there. It's just for such a small book, it's so powerful.
Yeah, it is. It is. Favorite principle, I guess, would be the one you're reading at that time, I guess. So,
yes.
Carl, man, you have added a ton of value. And man, I think this is a podcast that people need to go back and listen to and re-listen to over and over again, because you had so much great stuff that you shared with us. And so one last thought, if you had to give one last piece of advice, what would that be? One last piece of word of encouragement or knowledge that you want to share with us? What would you share with us?
I would share that you can do this. You can do this. It doesn't matter what the situation is, what aspect of your life that you want to apply this to, whatever it may be, you can do it. It's having that mindset of there's more that God has purposed me on this earth for. And I know with the right tools, seeking the right wisdom, holding myself accountable, you can do it. There's nothing that you cannot put your mind to. That's one of the, I guess, the biggest thing that I've learned. I see people, successful business leaders, politicians, mayors, just all these people. And I think, how did they get there? What was it? How can they do it and I can't? And the thing that I come to realize, they have the same fears as I. They have the same, situations that come in their life, while they may not be, they may not have lost a leg, they may have lost a spouse. They may have had something else go on in their life, but no matter what it is, you can overcome it. You can do whatever you put your mind to. You've just got to make that first step.
That's good stuff. Well, I appreciate you sharing. And Carl, if somebody is going through a tough situation, like what you've experienced, maybe they're contemplating amputation, or man, maybe you've shared a lot about how God has helped you through a difficult situation. Maybe they're going through a difficult season in life and they just need somebody who's been there. That's like you said, the eagle soar above the storm, but maybe they've soared and they're kind of in the clouds. They're in the storm. They just need somebody who's been there. How would somebody get in touch with you, Carl?
Sure. On social media, I'm on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Carl Sheppard. And then my email is carlsheppard1392@gmail.com. That's Carl, C-A-R-L, Sheppard, S-H-E-P-P-A-R-D, all one word, 1392@gmail.com.
Awesome.
Feel free to reach out, messenger, add me as a friend on Facebook or any of the social media platforms, and I'll be more than happy to sit down and talk with you. Try to encourage you the best I can.
Yes, you would. Well, I appreciate that, Carl. And you've done this has been powerful and added a ton of value. And I really appreciate you taking the time out of your day and adding value to us. And I know you've added value to our listeners. So make sure that you go and reach out to Carl, follow him on social media and support him in any way that you feel right. And reach out to him if you feel led to. And make sure you subscribe to Principles with Cory and Logan so you can stay up to date with any of the upcoming episodes. And if you are interested in being a legacy builder, if you are a leader or an entrepreneur, click the link below. There's an application process. We try to keep the integrity of the group by that way, but we'd love to speak to you. And we're all about developing leaders who are going to go out and develop other people and make an impact in their community and the people they come in contact with. So thank you guys. Thank you again, Carl. Awesome today. And you guys have a great day and God bless.